school this morning, listener. I grew up on the farsa, excited and enthusiastic. Our love is history.
I blessed the storm god, and he gave me long days and countless years, and great power over all kings. And the people who settled in this land had oxen, flocks, plenty and drink, and their offspring was plentiful, thanks to the storm god and the gods. Only the name of the Satyavadis is immortal forever, like the name of the sun and the moon.
Surprising, impressive. My students are now interested in history. I gave them tasks according to their abilities: social media, relations with universities, museums, printed texts, internet research. They started asking very interesting questions, and they learn very fast. They use artificial intelligence, they create characters, they prepare scenes. The music, scene transitions, colors they use in the short film they prepare. It's a bit scary. They are free to do whatever they want. But of course it is interesting to me. They were all very successful in the process of preparing the short film. They used new technologies very well. Preparing the project video in English was risky, but they took the risk. The final product is not bad at all. There are mistakes due to the fact that the technologies they use are still in the development stage and their level of English. But they can be tolerated. This project work not only increased their interest in history, but also improved their English skills. Their ability to use artificial intelligence software has increased. I think this is a big gain. We had a lot of fun working together. We learned new things. We gained new perspectives. This is just the beginning. We will continue to learn new information and improve ourselves.
1. Curriculum redesign, bringing a wider range of perspectives and voices into existing history curricula, including the stories of underrepresented or marginalized individuals and communities, linking local history to general historical events, emphasizing connections and interdependencies, integrate technology and digital resources to increase participation and accessibility. 2. Teacher training and support, provide professional development opportunities and workshops for history teachers to increase their understanding and knowledge of diverse historical narratives. Create a supportive network among educators, encouraging the sharing of best practices. 3. Interactive classroom pedagogies, encouraging student-centered approaches, such as project-based learning, where students research, document and present stories of ordinary individuals from their local communities or beyond, encouraging students to question and challenge dominant narratives, analyze primary sources and engage in discussions. 4. Collaborations with museums and memorial sites, collaborate with local museums and memorial sites to develop educational programs around underrepresented stories, organize field trips and visits to these sites to provide students with tangible experiences and meaningful connections to history. 5. Inclusion of technology and digital resources, harnessing the power of technology to enhance history learning. Engage students with a variety of historical narratives using virtual reality, interactive websites, online archives, and digital storytelling platforms. Develop digital literacy skills by giving students the ability to critically analyze online information and resources, 6. International cooperation and exchange. Facilitate international partnerships to promote the sharing of best practices, curriculum development and exchange of student resources at the high school level. Organize virtual or face-to-face collaborative projects to enable students from different countries to explore and share their local history through digital platforms. 7. Assessment and feedback. Develop assessment methods that focus on knowledge acquisition and understanding of diverse historical perspectives, providing constructive feedback, and developing reflection through dialogue to encourage growth, empathy, critical thinking, and development in understanding complex historical narratives.
Within the scope of the project, our first stop was the ancient city of Castabola, which has a fascinating history dating back thousands of years. Then, we met with monuments and artifacts that smell of history at Karatepe Aslantis Open Air Museum. Afterwards, we visited the history department of Korkut Ata University and met with lecturers within the scope of our project. Let's watch.
So if we think the city began to be formed around 2000 BC, if we consider that this place was a settlement until the 2nd century AD and was used as a magnificent metropolis, considering the technology of that period, this stone masonry, that is the amazing level of civilization they progressed to, their level of engineering, their level of architecture. Even these little stones show us something having survived until today. They are very valuable, very important. We just survived an earthquake nearby. Cities were leveled. How many earthquakes the settlement has survived for thousands of years. How much wind, rain, geography. It suffered from nature's destruction, human destruction. The fact that these have reached us today shows the great engineering of these structures. It's amazing in terms of showing how finely they were built, magnificent.
Halit Campbell, who started excavations as an intern in Bagazki, where Hattusa was located, continued the excavations throughout his life, and established Turkey's first open-air museum in Karatepe Aslantis Mound, which is recognized by the scientific world as the place where Hittite hieroglyphics were deciphered. She contributed greatly to the discovery of the ruins of Karatepe and the decipherment of the Hittite language. Halit Campbell is not only an archaeologist, but also a figure who left his mark on Turkish sports history. Born in 1916, Campbell was educated in the field of archaeology and carried out important studies in this field for many years. However, one of the things that makes her unique is that she was a pioneering figure in women's participation in sports in Turkey. Halit Campbell also pioneered the establishment of many sports organizations to encourage women's participation in Turkey. One of these organizations is the Keretip Aslantis Open Air Museum. This is known as an important museum, with many artifacts from the Hittite civilization, and Halit Campbell's contributions to archaeology and cultural heritage played a major role in the creation of this museum. Through her work and the project she pioneered, Halit Campbell is remembered not only as a scientist and athlete, but also for her pioneering stance on women's rights and cultural heritage. Her legacy lives on and continues to inspire future generations, both through her contributions to archaeology and her dedication to women's participation in sports. King Asadivadus was the last king of the Q kingdom ruling in Anatolia in the 8th century BC. In the bilingual inscriptions found in the Keretip Aslanta Open Air Museum, he describes himself as chosen by the gods, strengthened by the gods, protected by the gods. He named the city Azadawataya and willed that this name would live forever. However, after the city was destroyed by the Assyrians, its name was forgotten and it became known as Keretip. Research historian Sezmi Yertziver requested that the name of the ancient city be updated to Azadawataya Keretip in order to fulfill the King's Will 1-3. Keretip Aslantis Museum section is part of the Keretip Aslantis Open Air Museum in Osmani Province. The museum contains the ruins of an ancient fortress founded in the 8th century BC by Azadewada, king of the Kingdom of Q. On the fortress walls are bilingual inscriptions in Luwian and Phoenician script and statues of gods and goddesses. Thanks to these inscriptions, the Luwian hieroglyphs used in Anatolia were deciphered, and a lost language was revived. The museum was established in 1958 as the first open-air museum in Turkey. Next to the museum, there is also a 3-room building where artifacts unearthed during excavations are exhibited.
What is marginalized history according to you? What is its significance and what are its effects?
What do we mean by marginalized recipe usually? When we look at it with its modern meaning, we look at people that is as actors, Generally, as historians, we look as actors, but besides actors, about events within the time it occurred. How should we say that? We need to see marginalized people as the ones who actually do the work in the background, those who actually do the job, as we say. What about the historical writing? We are slowly starting to make progress. Now, aside from the people we see on the historical stage today, especially when we look at events from a local history perspective, what have people done locally?
What about the marginalized history? Do you think there are examples in Osmani as a person, as a work, as a place?
When we look at this as a work and a place from Osmani's perspective, Osmania is a city established a bit late, during the last period of the Ottoman Empire from Yapus. With the transition to Osmaniye, it became the center of Çebele Beleket Sancağı, a city established later. Those who come here over time, yes, Osmaniye has made contributions, but here, for example, let's count the family. Let's say, for example, conquerors or something. Who are these prominent people of here? But generally speaking, for example, after World War I, with the Armenian legions of the French, what is it with their invasion here? The place of the people here, those who are devoted to the national struggle or the leaders in the national struggle here, with sending commanders, he fought for the salvation of the Ottoman Empire with them.
So how can we bring up the marginalized history? Can we unearth this period?
What is marginalized history? Now, from the point of view of what we call local history, for instance, if we focus on Osmaniye, with the increase of studies on Osmaniye, just on Osmaniye, when we look at it from a historical point of view, during the period after the establishment of the Ottoman Empire or from the first ages, what can we do in socioeconomic, cultural, political, sports in every area? Along with their study, actually by studies, the real part is what we call marginalization, or other people living here as other people. Or we can only find that the Ottomans contributed.
About the marginalized history, this history always tells about certain people, certain forces and community events, experiences are told, other peoples are not told. This can lead to misunderstandings that cause deficiencies in history. How can we get ahead of these?
For instance, let's say this. I had a work on Adana, we say to the sheriffs, for example, just on normal people. Here about those people, especially the Sharia followers. There are also ledgers we call inventory. The inventories give us socioeconomic information about these people. What we mean is this. After a person dies, the property is not shared among the heirs. We can find out how much wealth he has here.
What are the effects of marginalized histories on general social perception and identity?
There's a situation with marginalized people, for instance. We generally say Republic of Turkey, don't we? When we look at the people here, it's Turkishness that we see as our upper identity. But other than that, besides that, or when we look at it from a lower perspective, we can't really talk about just one ethnicity today, remnants from the Ottoman era. Looking at it within the Muslims, there are many groups we could list as Turk, Tatar, Circassian, Laz. What else is there? Non-Muslim citizens, Armenians, Greeks, Jews and such are also living among us. Do we have any problems living with them? We have no issues at all.
I am enabling the inclusion of marginalized histories in history education to allow the younger generations to develop a more comprehensive understanding of history. He says, it says included in history education, but from here, we don't have a history education according to us about marginalized things. Why does this remain a rumor, or about this? Is there a formal step, or are these topics brought to the curricula? Is there any education provided on this? Or if not, how can this education be provided and how can we get ahead of them?
Obviously, the inclusion of this marginalized history narrative in the curriculum is a matter related to the Ministry of National Education. Over there, decision makers are determining the luxury. So, in fact, the marginalized understanding of history is still fairly new on our agenda in the historical research. Of course, it is important to understand what you mean by a marginalized understanding of history. A different group or, in fact, the untold behind the scenes. For instance, Istanbul's Fethi has certain characters. We are working on these characters like Fatih Sultan Mehmet, Byzantine Empire, and so on. But those who waged the war, of course, there is also a people who lived that war there. We're going to talk about this people's history. Events that took place in World War I or the national struggle should actually be narrated in the area where they live, what their past ancestors, grandfathers have experienced. Of course, they can know these. It is necessary, it is needed, but as I said, these studies are just beginning. Everything is not fully revealed in every way. There was a movie called Love School, for example. It was about World War I. For example, all the students in that school go to war at the student level and they can't graduate that year. This is a reality after all. These kind of anecdotes, it's perhaps interesting and also enduring in memory to work on something with tweezers. But the issue is how much will be given, and regardless of sides, history has such a handicap within itself. As much as possible, of course, it's important to convey these correctly to individuals. And sometimes certain things in our country can also be drawn to other sides with academic expert support. Of course, some things can be presented.
Today, as a high school student who has embarked on a transformative journey through the lens of historical education, I am before you. I worked on a project to empower marginalized histories for transformative history education, not only revolutionizing the historical understanding of the study, but also Ayşinümayim desai zemunj. I will share with you that it sparked a new zeal in me for learning. I am honored to have the opportunity to share. History has always been a subject that impressed me. However, by deeply researching marginalized dates, I started to understand the power of history to shape our perspectives. I really began to grasp. Before starting this project, I was not aware of the struggles and silenced voices shoved aside in history books. My research over time has led me to uncover narratives that have been hidden, ignored, or simply forgotten. It was an enlightening experience that exposed the gaps in our traditional history education and highlighted systemic biases and exclusions that shaped the challenges we accepted. However, instead of feeling disheartening or demoralizing, I found inspiration and motivation to question the current situation. This project not just changed my perspective on history education, it also gave me a sense of impact and responsibility. The described reshaping, amplifying marginalized voices, and a more comprehensive understanding of our collective past, I realized that I have the power to bring. The existing narratives, questioning, searching for missing pieces of the puzzle, a majority's view on historical events. Rather than my ability to analyze as critics from perspectives has increased. Moreover, through my research, I began to appreciate the transformative potential of history education. From a one-dimensional Eurocentric perspective to an inclusive of diverse experiences, by focusing on a discovery, we can remove obstacles, question stereotypes, and become more understanding, and we can develop a fair society. History education can serve as a catalyst for understanding, empathy, and human connection. It can reshape our worldview and inspire us to create a more fair and inclusive future. As a result of my studies, my enthusiasm for learning history, it increased exponentially. Now, it's not just an accumulation of facts and dates, it's constantly in our present, a journey of discovery and understanding that has become a dynamic force shaping our future. By going beyond the limits of the class to explore various perspectives, I have started to think about provocative discussions, participate and approach narratives outside textbooks. History has transformed from a static form of condensation to a dynamic force that shapes our today and future. In conclusion, we took on a project to empower marginalized histories for transformative history education. The project didn't just change my perception of history education, it also lit a fire within me, and a passion that advocates for a more inclusive and transformative approach to teaching and learning history. Today, I invite everyone on a journey to create a future where every voice is heard with efficiency, every story is valued, and every history is empowered.